Hello, friends. Happy today, whatever day it is when you see this. Okay, here's today's story. Today's story is another in a series of these stories that I'm writing that are a series of unlikely heroes that are all kind of like life itself, kind of interwoven into each other, but they may not directly be the same character, but somehow they're interwoven in this southern theme, if you will, if you haven't been able to tell by the dialogue that plays in my head when they come to me. Anyway, here's today's, at least the prologue of it. I'm not going to do the whole thing. This one gets a little longer. Trim Tab Tom was no ordinary cat. He was a little bit skinny, a little bit fat. He had orange tabby stripes and just patches of fur. And he sounded like a chainsaw cutting rocks when he purred. He was big. He was tough. Some might say he was mean. If a cat has 9 lives, Trim Tab had 13. He's one of those farm cats, couldn't keep him inside. And when he was out, don't bother looking. You couldn't find that place where he'd hide. Oh, but he'd go in the house when he wanted in. And before you knew how he did it, he'd be back out again. But he looked after the lady that lived in the house. And he protected her from spiders, roaches, occasional rat or mouse. And she loved that big old cat. Well, she was there in that home, that old house, big farm, all that time, alone. Now, there were others that were there on that farm, a cow in the field, a horse in the barn that she had named Bo Vine and Lee Quine. There's a turtle she called Shelly and a pig she named Sue Wine. There's a dog on the porch she just called Poodle. Looked like a dirty old pillow with a bark like a yell. He'd yell at the turtle. He'd yell at the horse. He'd yell at the pig and that old cow, of course. He'd yell and he'd yell so the lady would hear of the things on the farm she ought not to fear. But the things that might scare her, he'd make sure to tell the lady about them. So he'd yell and he'd yell like a screaming fur siren. A pillow of sound, part lunchbox, part noise box, part varmint, part hound. A barky barker, a yellow-furred yell, the dog in the porch she just called Poodle. Just one thing could stop him. In 2 seconds flat, he'd go stone frozen silent at the sight of that cat. Now, isn't that strange? Can you believe that? That a barky dog wouldn't bark at a cat? But as I first told you in the very first line, this big old tomcat was no plain old feline. And I feel I should warn you, things soon will turn tense. In this story, what happened? A cause for suspense? Trim Tab Tom, no ordinary cat. That's coming out. I'm looking for illustrators right now. That's going to that process. But